Hey, and welcome to the Jessica Paul podcast. I'm your host, Jess Paul, actress, manifestation expert, and mindset coach. And I'm here to share with you all of my secrets on confidence, success, and the magic of manifestation. If you're ready to dive in deep and see more success in your career, more money in your bank account, and more love in your life with a whole new level of freedom, then you're in the right place. I'm letting loose on everything you need to take back control of your life, up-level your mindset, and tap into your manifestation powers. I'm so excited that you're here. Hey you guys, and welcome back to the JP podcast with me, your host, your manifestation mentor, your spiritual bestie. We are back, and today we have another amazing guest episode. This actually, guys, I think was probably one of my favorite guest episodes. Like, we just vibed completely together. We could have chatted for hours and hours and hours. This is for all of my spiritual besties out there. This is such a great episode for you because we just go totally crazy esoteric. Like, we don't hold back. Like, I'm telling you guys stories that I have never told on the podcast before over here. Like, crazy spiritual stuff that has happened. This is the side of me that, like, I love. It's a very inward side of me that maybe I don't necessarily talk about a lot on social media, but it's a big part of my work as well, and it's a big part of my faith. And so we just go in on this together. I am with the amazing Ella Ringrose. I have followed Ella Ringrose for years, guys. You guys may have heard of her. She is a massive YouTuber. She's an amazing soul, amazing woman. And I'm actually going to be going out visiting her in Ireland over the summer as well. Can't wait. This year has been a year of just connecting with so many incredible people. And this chat today, you're going to absolutely love. But first, let's do our sponsor for this week, and then we will introduce Ella. So our sponsor is something pretty exciting because I was toying with this idea of bringing this out for a few weeks. And I finally decided, because so many of you were dropping in my DMs being like, tell me more about the Mindset Miracles of Manifestation Academy. Like, I want to know more. So I thought I'm going to put everything together in a free masterclass for you that is going to help you understand what manifestation is, how we can use it, my 4-step process in detail. So you're going to be getting all of my journal prompts on this. It's going to be an absolute blast, and it's completely free. Free masterclass. I haven't brought out a free masterclass in so long. I haven't brought out a masterclass in a while, let alone a free one. So if you guys have been in my world, if you've been eyeing up this space, if you've been eyeing up the academy and you want to find out more and more about how I work and how all of this works, then get your name signed up. This masterclass is called Just Like Magic, just like Ariana Grande says. And I'm taking you through the 4 key steps to manifesting anything that you desire. We're going through in detail my 4-step process, my journal prompts. We're going through everything together in a live space over Zoom. So if you guys are interested, if you want to find out more, come with your questions. Come with questions because there's going to be a Q&A at the end. So it's just going to be an absolute blast. I cannot wait to get in a space with you all again. This is going to be held on the 3rd of May. Wednesday, the 3rd of May, and more details on that will be coming out in your emails when you sign up, so make sure you keep your eye out for that. Get your name signed up via the link in my show notes, and I'll see you guys there. So getting into today's episode, then we have the incredible Ella Ringrose on. Ella is a psychic and energy healer from Dublin who helps women step into their power and manifest their dreams. She is a YouTuber, podcast host, and owner of the Rose membership, where she holds monthly ceremonies to help women empower, heal, fall in love with themselves, and manifest. I can't tell you how excited I am for this conversation. Guys, just go ahead and enjoy. As always, tag us both on your Instagram stories if you have loved this episode, because we love to see who has listened in. You guys are going to love Ella. She's probably going to come on for a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4 because we just love talking with each other. So enjoy, guys. Let us know how you found it, and I'll chat to you all next week. Hey, Ella. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
I am so excited.
I'm loving this energy. Like, I literally have been following you. We were saying just before, like, I've been following you for years, and I love your content. I love everything you're about. I love having watched you evolve as well, because you've obviously got a huge presence on YouTube, and like seeing you go through your own spiritual awakenings and, you know, transforming. It's amazing to see. And I honestly, I've been thinking, I need Ella on the podcast. And I've been thinking this for a while. And then only just the other day, I was on a walk and you popped into my head. And I was like, now is the time to message her. And you literally responded straight away. So I knew that this convo was supposed to happen.
I know. You know what, Jessica? I never replied to anyone on Instagram. Like it's like if I see a message and I feel cold, I send it. But for the most part, I don't use Instagram.
Oh
So
my God,
it was meant to happen.
It was so meant to happen. And
Yeah.
I know that all of my spiritual besties listening into this episode are gonna love it. I feel like we're gonna have some great chat.
I'm
But
excited.
I think what like a great place to start would probably just be to introduce yourself and like tell us a little about your own story. And because you, as I say, you've got a huge presence on YouTube, how you really even got into becoming a YouTuber and a coach and doing all the things you do, and just give us a little rundown on your life.
Absolutely. So I know we're going to talk about crystal children later. So I'm excited to talk about that because it kind of intertwines with, I think a lot of people who go through spiritual awakenings, or maybe not, go through a lot of difficulty in our lives or struggle or suffering of some form to kind of question things. So in school, I had a quite difficult childhood, and then going into school, I really, really struggled to fit in. I literally felt like an alien. I don't know if you can relate to that with things like
I can.
Yeah, like I actually, that's the only word I can find to describe. I don't think I'm an alien, but I literally was like, I just feel like an alien. So I really struggled. And listening to the teachers, I didn't, you know what, now looking back, I kind of think my soul knew, like I didn't need to learn some of the things I was learning, because I was very careless in school. And I always wanted to be a YouTuber since I was 12. Because the way I would cope through school is like I'd literally cry myself to sleep every night, because I just struggled in school. Academically, I was dyslexic and dyspraxic, but also in the social aspect. So my safe haven was always YouTube. Before it was even a thing, I would go home and I'd binge YouTube for hours. And I always said I was going to be a YouTuber. So when I was 17, I was sitting in the back of maths class, and that was one of my first intuitive impulses I ever experienced for a long time, where I just heard this deep voice saying, drop out, like leave school.
Wow.
And so I remember just like writing down some makeup colleges, because at the time I wanted to be a makeup artist and do makeup on YouTube. And I literally never went back that day. I didn't even tell a single student. I didn't say goodbye to anyone, because I didn't feel I was friends with any of them. So I just left, and I never went back. And I remember I still didn't start YouTube after I dropped out of school. And I always told myself, the reason I wasn't doing it is because I was so afraid of what people were going to say. I was so afraid of being perceived as weird, as like a freak, because again, YouTube wasn't normal back then. I feel like if you started it now, it would be kind of like, oh, cool. At the time, it was like, why are you putting yourself on the internet, you know?
Yeah.
So I remember that beat me up for months. And I actually, after I dropped out of school, I became so insecure because I still wasn't doing it. And then one day my brother felt the need to hand me this book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And so I read that book, and it was basically blew my mind open, because I didn't know fear wasn't real. For so long, I believed it to be truth. You know, I was afraid because I believed that would happen. Like people would bully me if I did that. And so I remember reading that book in a day, and I ran home and I started my YouTube channel that day.
Oh my God.
And then I became addicted to self-development and mindset, and just dove into that. I was going to every seminar, every course, every book, like obsessed. I come from a family that are very into all of this sort of stuff. So like our dinners were like masterminds where we just talk about all this sort of stuff. And so long story short, when I was 20, our family, we got evicted overnight. It was very sudden. And so I was very startled and kind of given this ultimatum of going, I don't really have any other option but to make this work. And it was at the time I found out about the law of attraction, and I started diving more into energy rather than like the logical ego. And so that's when everything started to take off. I moved to Canada. I grew a very successful manifestation business. And then I noticed I still felt like a fraud. I still felt the feelings I'd felt from when I was a child. I still felt insecure. I still felt like a phony. I still felt scared. And I was so confused, because I kind of was felt, this is what we were told that would bring us happiness. And of course it can, and it brings us stability, but it started bringing me on a quest of going a lot deeper. So I moved to the Canaries for a year and started devoting my life to healing. And I feel after, I think it's been about 2.5 years of just devoting my life to healing. I've noticed I'm going full circle now to the beginning of like feeling whole and complete and now creating and manifesting from that form and that place.
Yeah.
But in the process of that, just going through a crazy spiritual awakening to my psychic abilities, my healing abilities, to a multitude of facets. I can't really put it into just one thing, but
Yeah.
it's definitely been a journey. And I know you know that yourself. It's a insane journey. There's a lot of shadows that come to the surface, a lot of pain, but a lot of beauty as well. And I'm just so grateful to be sitting here and where I am now. And I'm so grateful for past Ella for
Yeah.
doing all that inner work
That's
to
the
now get
thing.
to a place where I can do the same for others. So yeah.
And it, and I, what I love about your story is that you, even though you felt, like you say, you felt that fear and you did feel like a fraud, and because I've had those feelings too, where I've been like, oh my god, but I'm still struggling with social anxiety and things like that I'm
Yes.
working through, and always, working to like a next level in my own self and in my own mindset. But what I love is that the minute that you had that download when you were in school, and you probably didn't even realize it was a download. Like, this is the thing. I feel like I've had it all my life as well. And I didn't even realize what it quite was. It was just such a deep intuition. And, but the minute that you had that download and you left, it was like you stepped fully into your purpose. And there was a reason that you went viral on YouTube. There was a reason you gained a huge following. And what's so beautiful about it is that you can then share the journey with everybody else, like these dark nights of the soul, and these like the ickiness through spiritual awakenings and everything like that. I love that you're so authentic with it online, and you share it, you share what's going through in your soul. And I think that's so important. And I think that is so important for kids today. And,
Oh my God, yeah.
and this is like a topic that I'm very passionate about, because my little sister, she's 14, right? And she actually reminds me a bit of you and your story when you were saying, I've always known I wanted to be on YouTube. She, I think, is born to be on YouTube. Like, she really
Okay.
is. And she makes these vlogs and she does all this stuff. But one of the things she always says is, Jess, I just don't fit in at school. And like you
Mm.
said,
Oh
and
my
this
God.
was me growing up as well, I just 100% was like, I do not fit in. I was always kind of more friendly with the older people. I was kind of hanging out with the years above me and like 3 years above me. And I do a lot of music and singing. So like I would always kind of be in that crowd, but I never fit in with my own age group. And I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like there was something that was kind of, pulling me out of the crowd.
Mhm.
And it was when I heard, I actually was diving down a hole into Dolores Cannon's work, and, her work on the New Earth. And this is something you talk about as well. And you
Mhm.
talk a lot about crystal children and rainbow children, and there's all of these different things that we can go into. I would love for you to just explain to us a little bit about what this new earth is to you, and maybe go in on crystal children and explain for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I think also I'd say your sister is like a rainbow child or a crystal, one or the other.
100%.
Same with you. But the new earth is interesting because I believe anyone listening to this podcast, anyone who is aware in some form or into or even drawn to this stuff, even if they don't understand what's happening, if they're drawn to it, I believe like we came here for this thing that is this quote unquote thing that is going to be occurring on earth. And it's at the end of the day, it's not going to be this dramatic like where everyone's going to be meditating, every single soul in the world, and the government's going to be gone and taxes are going to be gone. Like we have to be realistic. It's probably going to happen the next 500 years. But I believe and Dolores Cannon speaks about this a lot, where the earth isn't essentially ascending at the rate they'd like, right? We're kind of destroying the planet, and also online is kind of taking over this world, which is beautiful because it's awakening people as well, and I'm seeing that. But again, with every force there's a opposite to it, right? So the more light is going to start raising, the more the darkness is starting to raise. And that's why we can see, because in order for the world to shift into light, we can't just like bypass what's actually happening. We have to shine light in it to bring awareness to it. Like when you were saying about your sister, it resonated something within me of going, it's very important we speak our truth and share these things, because if we don't, we're kind of gliding and acting like everything, like it's like someone just shoving all this dirt under their rug and just acting like it's not there. Do you know what I mean? But it is there. So I essentially believe that the world wasn't ascending at the rapid rate that they wanted it to, and so they sent in waves of volunteers. That's what Dolores says a lot. Where essentially they sent in people with higher, I hate the word like light worker, or like a higher frequency, like we're better than, but I'll just give you an example. I have a client who had a stomach illness for, I think, 15 years of her life. And I was doing a psychic reading for her, and it came through that her child was a rainbow child. And rainbow children, all the volunteers have a very high frequency energy, a very healing energy, because that's what the earth needs. And she was saying that's very crazy you say that, because her stomach issue healed the minute the baby was in her stomach, right? Because the frequency was, the light was purifying and healing her vessel. So it shows the power of these children that are coming in, and also people like you and I who are trying to spread these messages across the world. But I believe the 3 waves of volunteers are the Indigos. So like my best friend is an Indigo, and they're essentially like the rebels, the ones who are here to like rebel against the systems. Crystal children, which is what I would resonate with, is we're highly sensitive people. Like I think that's why we struggled in school so much, because we're so sensitive to everything around us. Like I could feel what the girl was feeling 3 rows down, and I thought it was my own. And I think that's 100%. One thing we're not taught as crystals. We don't know what's ours and what's not ours, which I can actually tell you a technique that's so freaking powerful. Yes, if you're an empath. Yes. I'll actually tell you real quick. So what I do is I visualize 2 tubes. I visualize a collective tube and then a tube of my emotions. And if I'm ever feeling stuff, I wish I knew this sooner, by the way, because I've digested so many emotions that were mine. But I go, if this is my emotion, put it in my tube. And if it's not, put in the collectives. And 9 times out of 10, spirit shows me putting it back into the collective, and me going, no, this is not mine. I'm not taking this. But essentially, we're here to assist with the awakening that's taking place. And so I think a lot of people who have gone through awakening, specifically from the lockdown, it may have felt isolating immensely. It felt like you were going crazy. I know for me, I was kind of talking in mundane conversations, and I actually felt like I was going to go crazy. Like I was like, I can't talk about the weather anymore. And the news, like it was driving me insane. And the reason we have to go through it first is because we're essentially going to be assisting the people that are going to be going through this in 10 to 15 years. Because if the whole world awakened at once, the world would be a shit show. Like it wouldn't, you know what I mean? It would be an awful, like the whole system would crumble. So we need those systems. It's not to say like we need bin men and we need plumbers and we need electricians, right? We need all these things. So it's really just about us all coming together and unifying and allowing the light to essentially direct this world so that we can all live in more peace and not be against one another and be in a state of fear. It's really just down to fear or love, right? And I think the world is in a fear mindset, if you will, and it's an illness in itself. And I think that's what Dolores Cannon was speaking about. It's not that we're going to float off this earth. It's more so that the frequency we embody within us is going to vibrate higher and higher, because God is within us, that source is within us, that manifestation power is within us. It's not something outside of us. And we've been taught the polar opposite, to look outside, to when we see it, we'll believe it. And so we're taking our power back to realize that we're spiritual beings having a temporary human experience. When we realize we're spiritual, we realize we're tapped into an infinite source of potentiality of the field, the consciousness that is so powerful. If we actually knew that power, we like can't be controlled. We can't be belittled, because spirit is so immensely powerful. And the cool thing is, not the cool thing, it's actually kind of, it's like, if you are aware of that potentiality, of that awareness of the energy there, you have to utilize it at all calls, because I'd say not even a percentage of the world is tapping into it fully. You know what I mean? So use it as much as you can to influence others. And you'll notice when you start to do it, you are influencing so many people around you. It's just magic. It's beyond me.
It 100%, and you can feel it. You really do know when you're tapped into that place, because throughout my years of influencing too, and within my business and teaching in my own way, I have felt myself go in and out of it too. And and we've got to be kind to ourselves, like we go through these,
it's a dance.
It really is. And we go through these times in our life where we're learning new lessons, or we're going through another spiritual awakening, another dark night of the soul, which is very much what happened to me in 2022. I actually did feel massively that my feminine dropped in, like fully dropped in 2022 for me. I actually went through quite a bad illness at the start of the year, and it left me in hospital. And when I came out of hospital, I felt like a different person. I felt like I'd spiritually upgraded. But what you were saying there about, you know, how much we live in fear, this is something I am so aware of. And actually, I read the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Have you read that book?
No, I've read his other one, the Think and Grow Rich, I think. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
never
so
read that one though.
but it's really interesting because he's essentially having a conversation with the devil. It wasn't published for years after he'd written this book because his wife was actually worried that he would get lynched or something, you know, because it was so profound what he was
Totally.
saying. And he was just, you know, he was having a conversation with the devil. You know, you can take that as what you want, you know, whether it was an actual conversation with the devil or you know, it was what was going on within him. But and he just explains how the whole world is governed by fear. But what I have seen, especially with, you know, we want to call it light workers, like that, because there is so much light now being shined onto the earth, you see the shadows, and
Oh
which is
God, yeah.
why we've been through COVID and lockdowns and wars, you know, and movements like the Black Lives Matter movement, and so much has been coming up, so much unrest has been coming up, and it's almost as though it's because there is a new wave of light coming in, and you can't unsee it, you know, you can't unsee these things, and they need to
No,
be healed.
can't go backwards either. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With these three waves, so you've got the indigo, you've
Mm.
got the crystal
Crystal.
children, you've got the rainbow. With the rainbow children, what is their energy really in coming into this world?
Oh, no karma. They're like we're all here for a mission, but they're literally like they're not even going to get sucked in. So a lot of indigos got sucked into the matrix. A lot of crystals can completely forget their power as well, because if you're highly sensitive, you can take that as weakness, because the paradigm for the world of power is like, you know, this fiery, but you know, sense crystals are like, you know, like it could be considered weak. So they can also get sucked in, whereas rainbows are such high beacons of light. It will create ripples in the cosmos. Like it will literally ripple out into a classroom. Like they're placed strategically all around the earth in different schools to essentially wash that through, because this is the really cool thing when, you know, people say like 5G is coming out and all these like different things in the world. We actually, I believe, this is my belief anyway, we hold so much power that our light can battle anything if we choose it to, when we harness that. And so I believe they're being placed fully in all around the area, but they're essentially here to pave the new way. Now, it's interesting. Most of them, like I've had client calls, Jessica, these like 16-year-olds who come on and they're like, I've been able to see angels since I was born and I've always been psychic. And I'm just like,
Wow.
and their parents think they're crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I have so much love for them, but I'm like, I can't imagine what they must be going through, because a lot of, it's funny, I have a godmother, and when she saw me as a baby, she knew I was a crystal the minute she saw me, because she said I would just watch. Like I was very quiet and I would just, my eyes would follow and I was observing. And she said when she looked at me, she knew that I knew what I was here for. Like I was just a little baby just sitting around going like, yeah, I know I'm here, you know. And that's how I would say all the volunteers are. They know why they're here. Deep down in their soul, embedded beyond all that programming, they know why they're here. And when they activate that activates their power, because it kind of takes their power back from the fear of like life getting in the way, or that like life is going to take them on this. They're like, oh wait, I don't want to say a chosen one, because that's not the word. But I mean, if that makes you feel good, then do it. I'm actually at a point where I'm like, tell yourself whatever you want it to be, if that's going to empower you. And I also want to say something real quick, is you said, nobody's perfect and we're not always tuned in. Like, oh my God, I think that's the funny part of the spiritual path. Like I would have a revelation and a week later I'll have a completely different revelation that
Mm.
opposes what I thought was truth. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
wake up, I'm sure you're the same. I am learning every day. I can't keep up with what's truth, because when I think it is, I'm swung into the opposite and going, oh wait, that's the truth. And that's the truth.
Oh,
And then I'll go through a dance. Like, Jessica, I quit wearing shoes. I quit wearing a bra. I quit wearing makeup. I quit wearing any hair extensions. I stopped bleaching my hair for a year. I quit wearing anything polyester. Like, I became so like, this is the truth. This is how I'm meant to live. Like, and then I swung back in, wait, I love makeup. And I'm like, it's like, you cannot keep up with your transformation.
no.
And so there is no perfect linear line. You know, it's like, you have to trust yourself.
This is so important to mention, because I think that so many people as well that are with the purest intention that
Yeah.
start their spiritual journeys, and they get sucked into thinking that they have to do things in a certain way. And
Yeah.
this is what I meant, because I noticed this with your journey. This is what I
Yeah.
meant at the start when I said I have loved watching you evolve and how authentic you are through the process, because I do remember there was a time when you wouldn't wear nail varnish,
Oh yeah.
and you were like,
Okay.
no,
Sorry
no,
if I
no
can
nail
curse.
varnish.
Yeah.
No, you can. And I, and then the nail varnish came back, and I was like, but you know, good for you, because you're going on this journey, and we're all at different stages. We're all doing, you know, we've all got different journeys, but just knowing that like there is no right and wrong. And
There isn't.
actually, like, one of the main things that I find a lot in people that, and in myself, when I first went through a spiritual awakening, I feel like I've gone through multiple, but
Gotcha.
when I first did, I was like, you know, really floaty. I was like, I
Oh.
am in the 5D, I'm living in this fifth dimension. And I forgot that actually I had to ground myself in the 3D. Like, we're in this 3D world to play and to grow. And I think that's also, again, if we're talking about not being perfect, it's also where my social anxiety started coming back in again, because I was like, I have been so floaty up in the air, meditating in my room by myself, that I forgot that there's a whole life out there that I'm supposed to be living.
I
And
know.
I
My
think that's
ear
really
just started
important.
ringing as you said that as well.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
You
It's
I have to say this line because I'm studying to be a shamanic practitioner, and
yeah.
my teacher said this one line, and because I was the same as you, completely the same, and I think it's all perfect, you know. She said, Ella, the spiritual experience is the human experience. Like, the human experience is a spiritual experience. And I was like I think we sometimes get so attached to floating away, like we're anything to deny where we are.
Yeah.
And that can cause issues in itself. But again, I think everything's perfect. Like, you have to learn these things, right? And you have to go through it yourself.
Yeah.
100% completely. And it's it really,
Yeah.
there is no you know what, you just said something there about like people, the lesson is trusting yourself. Because if when I was against nail polish or all these things, which again, I don't think it's the best for you, but you know what, I have it on right now.
Yeah.
It's like all I knew to be my truth was my own.
Yes.
So I had to follow that. So if someone's looking at me and something doesn't resonate, they have to go within their truth. And that's the actual lesson of all of this. It's going within. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And one of the things that I pride myself over as a coach and as an influencer online is that I am incredibly authentic as well, which is what, and people can probably see that. Like I've said, the way that you show up and how that you've evolved, like people can probably see that with me. And I've been through, I actually can like, there's three main stages that I feel like I've been through already within my journey. One of them was deep heart connection, like deep,
Oh yeah.
deep self-love work, where I was like, I just need to connect back to my heart center. And that was a whole period of my life, which
Yeah.
I taught as I was going through it. And then I watched myself, like on reflection, I watched myself then step into this bad bitch mode where I was like, I am untouchable. Like, I can do whatever the fuck I want, and Miss Independent and all of this. And that was only a year ago. Like, I swear, like that was only a year ago. And I was running workshops like the bad bitch workshop, you know, and things like this. And I know, right? And then it was 2022, like I said last year, where I really dropped into a place, like dropped into this feminine place where I was like, hang on, I'm evolving again. Something's changing. And I love bringing out different masterclasses that reflect that, because we're always growing. And like I said, we're always in these different stages. And just knowing that nothing, there is no right or wrong on this journey. And like, it is just, as you say, listening to yourself, listening to what's going on inside for you, and knowing that it's right. Whatever you're going through now is right. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you mentioned all the patterns you went through. I love this. I feel like I'm looking at my mirror because my heart awakening was probably the most profound thing I've ever experienced. And the beautiful thing about the heart connection is that like you can drop in at any moment and feel the velocity and the power of that. But it's so funny you say this, because I was kind of the opposite, where when I started YouTube, I was like, didn't give a shit, like boss woman, like I was so outspoken. Then I started healing, and I was so fragile online. Like I was so tormented by how much trauma was coming up and how much I'd been hiding, which I had to feel. And then I went through my heart awakening, and I was like, oh. And at the time I was actually living with a friend, Austin, and he was saying like, Ellie, you're too nice. He's like, you're letting people walk all over you. You're like not like taking good charge. And I was like, you don't get it. Like, you don't get it. And like now I'm integrating to a place where I'm like bringing them all together a little bit. And I'm like, oh my God, that's why I had to live with him at the time, to learn that. You know, I did at the time, it didn't resonate. I was like, he doesn't understand. And now I'm like, wait, this makes so much sense. So it's so fun, and it's
I feel this.
And it's like, you know, like maybe even if you write a book, then in a year you're like, but this isn't truth anymore, you know, and that's my fear. But I'm like, you know, you just have to go with it.
I literally had this thought. I was like, all of the content, and it's funny because you can, in the same way that you can see how you evolve on YouTube, you can see how I've evolved on my podcast. If you go all the way back to my first episode, which I only did start my podcast last year, but even then, like I say, I've transformed so much. And it's almost like a pendulum, isn't it? Like when it swings one way, and then it like goes all the way back the other way. And I felt for me, because one of the things I found hardest only 3 years ago, and honestly, that is not a lot of time, but 3 years ago, I could not speak my truth. I could not, my throat chakra was so tight, so closed up, that I could not even show up. Like I said, I was this tight, you can even like see your voice change. My voice was like dead high pitched.
Oh,
yeah, and now it's like dropped. It's like grounded again.
Yeah, that's one thing that happened with my spiritual awakening. My eye color changed. It's more green, and my voice changed. If you listen back to my videos, I'm like, hi guys, it's Ella. Welcome back to my channel. Like, but it naturally started like lifting.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's profound what happens to your physical appearance when you do energy work. It is beyond
mental,
me.
Isn't it?
It's beyond me. And you actually, I just have to say again, you said something about the pendulum, which was so important and visual for me, is because when I went through my experience, I went to such extremities on both sides. I was so success driven, and I was so in my mind and hustling. I burnt myself out at 21 years old. Like I had a breakdown, a burnout at 21. Like what? Yeah. And then I went to the other side of just so in my feminine. I was crying all day, every day. Like I was an emotional mess. My family was worried. And now I'm like in the middle. The pendulum will bring you back. But I think our soul wants to experience both to learn what works for us. So again, it's like you have to trust yourself in the journey and not look at another and be like, "What, I should be like that." Like this is something I noticed every client call I had. Like I would admire parts of their personality and like how calm they were about certain things. I was like, I want to be like that. Like, I want to take that on. And then I got to a point where I'm like, but I'm me. Like, I have to honor, like, this is the way I am. And same with you. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you have to honor your pattern and how you work, because we're all so unique. And that's our beauty. Like, isn't it so cool that there'll never be another person of us ever in the universe, ever? There's only one you, literally. I know it's so cliche, but it's true.
It blows your mind. I know, it blows your mind. But I think you're so right there about like our soul wanting to experience both sides of the spectrum, because going from not being able to literally speak at all, like not being able to speak my truth, to then only last year going all the way to the other side of the pendulum and probably opening up my throat chakra a bit too much. Like I had people being like, Jess, I mean, you didn't really need to say that, or you're being a bit brutal. Like, I'm a Scorpio rising as well. So like I do have that energy within me, and it all comes from a loving, pure place, obviously. But I could see that's what happened. And even my mum said to me, she was like, yeah, like sometimes you don't need to say the things that you say. And I was like, okay, like I could feel myself swinging too far the other direction. And like I say, now I feel like I really have settled and like dropped and grounded into a place that works for me. And again, like you say, everybody's in a different space in their own journey. But it's funny as well, I noticed within some of my clients, like I watch them as well. I watch their journeys even after we finish working together. I'm like, oh, I can feel you, like you've opened up that throat and you're there and you're in that space and you're in that bad bitch energy and it feels amazing. And then I watch them again, like the pendulum swing for them, and it's really nice to see, because I think it is important to experience it all massively. One
I know.
thing that I as well have massively been going on a journey with in 2022 has been opening up my own psychic
I
gifts.
knew this was
And
coming. Yeah.
yes, and we're going to talk about this because it's actually something that I will admit I haven't shared fully on the podcast yet. And I have like teased I've teased my podcast. I've been a bit like, yes, I'm gonna do an episode on this. Like I've spoken about my intuitive gifts, but I haven't gone into the fact that I actually have opened something up within me yet. But it's really, for me, it's been kind of daunting because it's hard to, how do you go about just telling someone, yeah, I'm psychic, by the way, like it's been a process for me to actually like accept it and
Own it.
work
Yeah.
with it, and use it, because I do use it now within my containers and my closed containers with my clients. I will channel for them, but it's not something that I'm public about. Well, now I am, but like as of yet, in terms of like properly. Can you explain your own journey with this and how you opened these gifts and how you dealt with it and how you've worked with it?
Yeah, totally. Well, a crystal origin, one of their natural things is they are immensely psychic. Interestingly enough, my mom is very psychic and she's only started opening up to that in the past year. She's always been very, I think she was kind of closed off to that world. But as a child, I had that gift very strong. I would be able to feel the presence of angels around me all the time. I even saw fairies. I know some people might think that's very far fetched, but I could see them.
I will just tell
Yeah.
you now, just to stop you really quickly, that was the one big thing about me. Well, there was two big things about me as a child. Number one, I had a fairy house at the bottom of my garden, and even though it was my mum writing these
Yeah.
letters to me, I would write to these fairies every single day, and
Aw.
I would also talk to animals. And that's how
Yeah.
I knew, because that was something my mum would say to me, like, I would watch you. Like, we had a rabbit when I was younger, and she was like, I would
Aw.
watch you just sit outside and talk to the rabbit or talk to the cat
Yeah.
or whatever for ages, which is kind of crazy, but it
So
was
beautiful.
one of the things. Yeah.
The
Anyway,
animal whisperer.
yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. But like that should be normal. You know what I mean? Like tree hugging shouldn't be weird. It should be normal.
Mm.
Like it's healthy. Um, but we were, oh yeah, so the crystal children, yeah, very immensely psychic. But it was weird. I didn't believe in psychics. It wasn't something I seeked, which was very interesting. I was deep into my healing. I was going through a very difficult personal situation that kind of, I felt I was being cornered into a wall to heal.
Mm.
And so I would spend my days meditating and healing. And then I remember I just kept seeing purple in my visions and I didn't know what this was. So I Googled it and it was like the third eye. And I was like, interesting. I went deep into meditation. My God, like hours a day, just in my
Yeah.
room, like the lights off, like,
Wow.
and I was sharing an apartment with my roommate came in. She'd be like, what the fuck is going on in here? Like, it was like a weird little thing anyway. But then I remember starting to remember past lives in my meditations. And, I'd remember memories would come up. I'd start crying. I'd remember all these, their name. I would Google them. They were always immensely aligned. And a lot of things up to that point in my life made sense because of the fears I had were linking to how I died or what I experienced in those lifetimes, that they leaked in. I call it like past life leaking, which we can clear because it's really important we clear our past lives because they can leak into our present a lot. It kind of makes up our whole being. But essentially I just started getting psychic visions. And I remember there would be specific things I'd see of images of people and where it was. And then they'd start happening like 6 months later, 4 months later. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I didn't seek it. It just started happening. And so when I moved to the Canaries is when it really started to rapidly evolve, where I was able to see all the chakras that would be blocked in a person. That's essentially how spirit shows me first, is the chakras. And then when I go into a chakra, I'll know like, okay, their dad abused them or did this, and I'll hear all the information. It's always correct. So I started practicing for people on the beach, literally just friends that I didn't know that well. And always the information started to become true. And I started just trying with everyone. And so I started opening up coaching calls just to coach people. And essentially through that, I started receiving messages from their guides and their angels, just like coming to me where I wasn't even really asking for it. So then I switched it to psychic calls. And almost every single call I've had has been, no, every single call, I don't recall on this, but it's always been correct information that channels through. And now I'm at the point where like, it's just so normal for me. But the reason being is I was in the Canaries and I said a prayer because at the time I wasn't happy there anymore. It wasn't me. It was this really hot island, and I'm Irish, I'm pale skin. Like I like the cold and the rain. And so I said a prayer, and I'm very guided by my angels. And so I was guided to this bookstore, and this book on the bottom floor was gleaming like light towards me. And so I pulled it out, and it was about this man from Dublin who could see angels. And I was like,
Wow.
oh my God. So I bought it. I ran home, I read it, fell in love with this guy. And I booked my flight home that day, and I went to meet him. So I got a psychic reading off him. And the first thing he said when he sat down, he went, "You're very psychic and a healer." And so I think him telling me that made me own it in a powerful way. I disregarded how crazy I was going to seem to people. I was just like, fuck it.
Yeah.
And I'm also aware of how crazy it is. But I'm actually at a point of how much validation I've received for everything I've ever said to be correct. I'm not ashamed. I mean, if anything, I like take it as, I love getting people's reactions to being like, she's crazy. Like, I honestly think normal people are crazy. Like, if you're not crazy, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
What's
I
the
think
point if you're not a bit crazy? You know what I mean?
absolutely. But even we're just tapping back into who we should be. Like,
Yeah.
I own it so much. I love it about me. It's like my favorite trait, and I think it's cool. And it's something every single day, like without fail. It's kind of gotten to the point where it used to be I'd ask for permission to connect with people's guides and angels, but now it's like they're here all the time. Like,
Yes.
I was even in London like a few days ago, and I walked into this makeup store. I have these scenarios like every single day, Jessica. It's just insane. Because once you kind of get into this, you're kind of guided by spirit. Like, they kind of use you as a vessel sometimes. So I was getting this makeup product, and I left, and then I just kept hearing, like, they don't leave me alone until I do it. They were like, you have to go back. You have to go back. You have to talk to this girl. You have to talk to, and I was like, I'm not gonna. So I was like, fine. So I go back 10 minutes later. This girl's really shy. And I'm like, why do I have to talk? This is like, what am I, like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I was like, hi. And she was like, you're back. And I was like, yeah, like, this is a girl working in a makeup store. So I just started chatting to her, pretending about the products, like asking things. And basically we got talking, and she had just dropped out of school, and she was 17, the age that I dropped out, and she wanted to become a beauty YouTuber, which is why I dropped out of school at 17. So I knew immediately that's why spirit brought me back to her, because she was literally a shadow version of me who's doing the exact same thing. So I like took out a piece of paper. I was like, this is what you're going to do. I was like, you have to believe in yourself. And I gave her like this whole thing, and she nearly started crying and was like, you have no idea how much I've been struggling and doubting myself. Like, you're my permission slip to start. And she sent me this message on Instagram going, she's going to start now. And like, you just never know the course of direction is going to change in her life from that one encounter. I literally can't even count on fingers how many taxi drivers I've like had to give the message. Is like, I didn't get a taxi to the airport. The guy started like crying. Like, he was just like, you have no idea how much I need it. Like, it's such a rewarding gift that I'm at a point where I'm like, I can't allow my ego to be embarrassed by this, because this is literally changing people's lives. And like, it's bigger than myself. You know what I mean? I have to put my ego on the back burner and be like, even if I'm embarrassed, like, I don't walk around saying I'm psychic, but like, now I'm at a point, it's so normal to me. I'm like, of course I am. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And that is the thing. And like you said before, like, it's cool to you, you know? And
oh, it's so cool.
Exactly.
I'm like, I brag about it.
Exactly. And this is what I teach so many of my clients in my community, is that like, you can make anything. Well, this is the basic principle of the law of attraction anyway, in that, like, you know, you believe something about yourself, it will be the truth. You know, I have this one mantra that I live with, that everybody I meet falls in love with me. Like, everybody I meet falls in love with my energy, right? But it's the thing, like, if you believe that about yourself, because I think for anybody listening in that maybe is aware that they might have these gifts, or are starting to open up these gifts and feeling this intuition more deeply, like, it's really important that to know that it is a practice in that way, because
oh god, yeah,
exactly, for me, for example, like, I I have been needing that validation in terms of from my clients. Like, let's say, you know, I don't do this I'm not at a stage where I can do it, as you say, like go back and talk to someone on the street. I don't feel like I'm at that stage yet,
I
because
know.
it's
What
a
if it's
trusting
wrong?
but no,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
great because it's you trusting yourself that much that it is the truth. And I've started to practice this just with my clients, where I'll say, you know, like there was one particular time with one of my clients where, and it was, you know, again, the other thing is I can't control it, and maybe this is something that you've like worked on as well, but for me it does drop in at just incredibly random times. I think it was like nearly 12 o'clock at night. I was like in bed, I was drifting off to sleep, and then I just got this message. And for me it's deeply intuitive, so you know, I don't necessarily hear things, although I have heard some things before, but it's much more deeply intuitive. And
Wow.
I just had this like feeling, okay, you've got to text this client and tell her to get a brain scan. And for me as well, like that is also like, for my client, a really weird thing to then receive from me, like, and also kind of a pretty scary thing to be like, oh, get a scan of your brain. And but I'm practiced just going for it and telling
Trusting
her
yourself.
anyway. And
Yes.
her knowing that she knows me and like she knows how I work and she knows what I do, I was like, well, this is the perfect opportunity to practice. And I text her and I just said, listen, this is just come through. I'm not entirely sure what it means. Don't take it like, you know, just take it in your own way. Like, don't be worried by anything. And she said to me, Jess, how weird. I have had sinusitis for months, and the doctors do not know what's wrong with me, and X, Y, and Z. And anyways, she ended up getting this scan, and she ends up realizing that she's actually going deaf in one ear. And you know, like insane. And it was just so random. Like I don't know why it came through for me. I don't know why I had to share that with her, but it was but
Yeah.
she had been putting off this thing. She was like, oh, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. And I said, no, I think you really need to go and get it seen.
Wow.
And that was probably the moment for me where I was
Validating.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a thing and
Wow.
this is real. And now I just have to practice, you
Yeah.
know.
That is, Jessica, that's amazing. That's like, it's a thing because like spirit will have to drop it into the person who can
Mm,
receive that, you know,
mm.
and you can share that. That's so
It,
exciting. And like you were saying, people listening, it's 100% something that you have to practice and strengthen and like you said, trust yourself.
mm,
Because for me as well, I would be a medium where I can connect to past loved ones.
wow.
And that was something that took me a very long time to trust, because every time I did readings, I'd feel these energies of people and names would come through. And I was too
Wow.
scared to say it until I had this one girl, this client, and I just got this pink energy in this woman. And I just said marshmallow, pinky marshmallow. Like I just said, and I was like, what the, it was like the first time I didn't even think, I just said it. And she went, her granny's name was that, bringing them. Oh,
Oh, I just lost you for a second there.
oh no.
Like,
Is it
can you?
okay?
Oh, it's back now. It did this
Okay.
yesterday as well. I'm really sorry about that.
No, don't be silly.
So you were saying the pink
Oh,
energy.
yeah. I just basically, it was her grandmother, and I said her name, and she would always bring them to toast marshmallows around the fire, because I've noticed past ones will say random things so that you know it's them, you know, like the
Wow.
name of their teddy or there's something. But I remember then talking to a coach I have and being like, oh, I'm very not used to it. But you trusted yourself and you just did it. And I think that's the thing, is like everyone has to learn. Like even the guy I read in the book who can see
Mm,
angels his whole life, he was learning to be psychic and he wasn't trusting himself for so long. So it's like even psychics feel like, oh, am I like, is this real?
yeah.
And I also read somewhere that people who are naturally psychic and can tune that have had to earn that over many lifetimes,
Mm,
because if you don't have this sovereignty in you as a soul, you can use it in abusive ways to like
mm,
hurt people.
mm,
But on the other hand, I also believe anybody who has been attracted to listen to this 100% has that ability, because
mm.
if not, it would not even be put in their face. It's like when I watch a movie, like I remember I was even watching like Ginny and Georgia last night with my mom. I was staying at her house, and like a few years ago, if I watched that, I don't even know if it was, but if I did, I would have watched it in entertainment, right? And then this time I watch it and I'm perceiving it in such a different
Mm.
way of like the programming and like, oh, this and the actors, I can see the way they feel. And like, it's like you won't, if you tell someone a piece of information, they'll only digest what they can actually hear
Yeah.
at
Oh,
that
yeah.
time.
That's
So
such a
that's
good
the
point.
cool thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I just feel that every like you were saying before, if you're drawn to this, if this sort of thing is the sort of thing that you will, let's say like someone listening to the whole of this podcast episode, this is
They're
because it is
psychic.
within you. Yes, 100%.
Absolutely. 100%.
110%. Like I go through these, I talk about this all the time because I go
Yeah.
through these times where I go through down holes, like absolute holes on YouTube, right? And this is why I love YouTube for that reason, you know, and like I will get called, you know, I remember vividly getting called first off, oh yeah, to look into mediumship. And I don't believe that I'm a medium because I just don't actually feel that for
Oh
myself.
yeah. Wait,
But
can I say this for
yeah,
you real quick?
yeah,
I just remembered I was going to say this. You know my friend Kira?
I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she would be the very same psychic as you because I don't get feelings ever.
Oh,
So
right.
I can feel deeply, but you said there you dropped in and it was a knowing you to do it.
It's a
Kira's the
knowing.
same, like feel. Whereas I just literally receive visions constantly and like them talking to me, but I don't get the feeling thing. So
That's
that's the cool thing.
interesting.
There's multiple different, there's clairaudience, clairvoyance,
Yeah.
clairsentient, cognizance, like there's
Cognizant.
so
Yeah.
many. So that's the cool thing as well, because all my friends, we're all psychic, yet we're nothing alike. And
That's
that's
so
the really cool
interesting.
thing.
I
Yeah. So
know.
people might find it in different ways as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important to know as well, because for
Yeah.
me, I did question it because I was like, is this just a feeling that you know, because it's like when people question their intuition. We all
Yeah.
have intuition, right? And we are
Yeah.
all born with it innately. And it was just on a deeper level for me that I was like, that I had to really work at not questioning, because I was like, it is a gift. I feel, you know, and you know, opening up to understanding that. But I have always felt this, where I've gone down deep holes in stuff like it was researching mediumship and psychic abilities, and then it was I'm going down a hole at the moment in numerology, like all of this stuff. And it these things are opening up to you, and you're coming across these things for a reason.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's all just peeling back the layers of yourself. And this is why, you know, when you are drawn to this work, it is to trust it within you. I
Oh
think
yeah.
is the most important message, really.
We're so
Um,
guided.
we are so
I'm
guided.
shown that again and again. I'll have a crazy, I'm like, oh God, trust Ella. Like you are
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Yes.
So
And one
guided.
of the big things for you, because we want to get onto this topic as well, has been through this angelic realm and actually through
Mm.
channeling your angels. And I know because you brought out like a program in this as well to help people do the same thing. And you channel a lot on your YouTube, you channel a lot of through your angels on YouTube as well. Can you tell us a little bit about, first off, for anybody who is completely new or for anybody who's just, you know, wants more clarity on this, what our angels actually are? Because now, listen, I have full-blown conversations with my spirit guides, and this is again something I talk about with my clients. But what's the difference there, and
Oh
what
yeah.
are our angels to us, and also how did you start, you know, channeling them?
This is so funny because I'm just hearing angels will trigger you so much more because they're not for the ego
Wow.
ever. You know, they're
Mm.
so I'll share quickly, but you know, it's so funny. I was more afraid to talk about angels than psychicness, not on this, but back in the day, because I was like, okay, now I look crazy. Like I'm
Yeah.
talking about angels, I'm shutting my eyes and I'm like, Archangel Metatron
Yeah.
wants to come through. But like, yeah, it's such a big part of my life. Like I'm obsessed with angels and I always have been.
Mm.
Even as a child, everyone would just call me an angel. And like it was something I always felt connected to. I was in hospital in my childhood and I always felt angels around me. I prayed to them every night. I just
Mm.
lost that disconnection because I noticed people didn't believe in it. So I was like, okay, I can't believe in it either. And
Mm.
then I just started to experience such angelic experiences of being guided to things that just do not make any sense, Jessica. And they never like that's just the profoundness of their power. And so I started working with an angel healer and I just started noticing I go through phases, like maybe as you, like we go through like you said, numerology, maybe astrology, crystals. The one thing that has always stayed persistent in my spiritual journey is one, spirituality, but two, angels. Like no
Mm.
matter how much I try, they do not leave. Like I'll be like, no, I want to be this. And then they're like, no, you're this, you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
so I started talking to them and connecting to them a lot in times of of need and, you know, just praying. And really when I was struggling, because I think when you really connect your angels, you're seeking like real faith, you know. And I believe God or source of the divine, they are messengers for that energy, whereas spirit guides have been incarnated in human form many times, so they have a more of a logical understanding. They can help you navigate, whereas angels are literally just pure unconditional love. They told me they reside in the 7th dimension and the 9th, but the angelic energy, like they're not, angels aren't like a man or a woman with wings. They present themselves in that form so we can understand them better, but they are just an energy and a collective. There's literally no separation. So actually when you're connecting to your guardian angel, you're connecting to Archangel Michael, because it's all connected. It's all one frequency, all one realm. So when I channel the angelic realm, it's actually the whole collective as one. And there's so many angels you can connect to, unemployed angels, so many that have helped me in times of despair, finances, like love. Like I remember I was like, angels, I really want to meet someone. They were like, okay, go outside to your bus stop in 10 minutes and get this bus here. And literally I ran into someone and started dating him. Like it was just like,
Wow.
you just can't make up stuff like that. So I started connecting them deeper, and the love for them just grew more and more. But the difference between the guides and the angels is angels are such deep love. They do not see a flaw in a human. And they see right through the ego. And the beautiful thing is your guardian angel has been with you in every lifetime. So you only have one or two. And so what I've noticed is, like, let's say you're going on a date and you're like, oh, I don't know if I like him. And the angels are like, see the heart. Like they're very like, they see the simplicity in every human. They completely dissolve the ego as well. So sometimes that can be triggering because, you know, you want your ego to win, or you want it to be a certain way. And they're very nice and loving, but they're such profound beings. And you can receive healing from them at any moment. You can do a heart connection where you get a heart cord and connect to them. And they just send you so much love and compassion, and they see everything from such a higher perspective than we ever will. And so sometimes getting that guidance, and anyone who is listening and doesn't believe in angels, I would simply ask you, whatever sign pops into your head right now, whether that's a butterfly, a turtle, feathers, ask your angels to send you that message in the next 24 hours and just allow them to send that through. And then you can start testing with them, going, okay, if you're real, show me this or tell me this. And that's what it started with me. I didn't just go, oh my God, I believe in angels. I read a book and then I just started noticing them guiding me. But the first time one actually came to me, I was writing a book at the time, which I didn't decide to go through with. I was channeling, and all of a sudden this white light of energy entered my body and kind of took over my fingers, and I started typing. And at the time I wasn't aware of archangels. When I was younger I might have remembered, but I didn't remember anymore. And what came up on the screen was Archangel Gabriel wants to speak with you. Go over to your bookshelf and open page like 12. And I was like, what's going on? And so I walk over to this book that I had taken from my stepmom's house a week before, which I completely forgot about. I just took it, and it was an angel and spirit guides book. And I opened this page on the number that it said, and Archangel Gabriel was shining right back at me. And then that's when I knew, I was like, wait, these beings are like, this energy is real. And so I started asking, what do you want? Like, how can I? And they started just channeling, because I was going through something really difficult at the time. They were just sharing all this information they can do. And then I started trying with different archangels and just practicing. But the one thing I will say, and I know this may sound a bit daunting, is like, you also really have to connect to your heart and the light and clarify what you're connecting to, because there is a lot of energy in the spiritual realm. And with every light there has to be an opposing force. So you can also channel. I've had entity attachments of darker energies that came to me, and I believed it was them, and I've seen it ruin people's lives. I'm not even kidding.
Really? Wow.
You just have to be careful, not careful because that's fear, right? But just really tune into your discernment, and again, trust yourself, right? I used to channel things that sounded so like, you have to do this, and I'm like, that's not how an angel would speak. Like, that's not how they speak. They're very loving and light, but I believe everyone has angels around them. I believe we're guided by our angels if we choose. And when you surrender to that guidance, you will be blown away, Jessica. I actually want to write a book on every encounter I've had, because I have at least 100 stories of the craziest situations that just do not make any sense to the logical mind. I don't think they ever will.
Well, so, yeah. I would love to read that. I'd be straight there. I'd be straight in it. I mean, because it is true. Like there's it's really how I would probably distinguish it as well, you know, with the spirit guides being people that have actually walked this earth before. So that's how they can guide in that sense. Totally. And then the angels being more of that light that's like, that they haven't walked the earth, so it's a different kind of guidance.
Yeah.
And but also just touching upon what you said there about the dark entities, I think that's really important, not to instill fear in anyone, because like we said, this is not what we're about here. And one thing I always have to remind myself of is just that, trust myself, because I remember when and this was right at the start of last year, like, and again, it really wasn't that long ago, but right at the start of last year, and or maybe the end of 2021, I had these terrible dreams. Well, not dreams, nightmares, right? And it was really vivid for me because it was around about the time that I was opening up these gifts, which I thought was interesting, because I was like, actually, like the more open I've become, the more room there is for other people, other entities to attach themselves. And I had this one dream in particular and it was something that had disguised themselves as my nan. And I remember vividly thinking in the dream, oh my gosh, my nan's come to send me a message, like my nan has come through. This has never happened to me before, right? It never was any of my other grandparents either. Well, apart from my grandpa, that's another story. But and she had her arms open to hug me, and I went to go and give her a hug, and her eyes turned black. She grabbed me by the throat and literally like started choking me. And I remember waking up from that dream thinking, wow, this was like a huge test as well in like, again, trust, because I remember in the dream, well, it was when I woke up, I did a lot of work on like clearing out my energy and things like that. And I had a similar dream come up again, and I remember in the dream just being like, literally fuck off. And I just remember screaming, you have no right to be here. And I remember like, only letting in my divine protection team, that's what I'd call them. And from that day forth, everything changed. So it really is just like,
wow, that's
yourself,
powerful,
isn't it? It was quite powerful.
Oh yeah. I mean, actually there's a great book called Angel Inspiration by Diana Cooper, and she says this, that you can ask them 3 times and then they have to reveal themselves to you. It's a law. But a lot of them disguise themselves and then they turn into whatever they're actually revealing themselves to. Because I actually have a friend who is like a pro at astral projection. He's been doing it his whole life. And that's one thing he said. He said the amount of beings that pretend to be something they're not. So again, it's trusting yourself. But I have to say this because it came through as well as this is something, because I'm studying in shamanic practitioner, and like it's like all the spiritual nerds together, so it's the most amazing conversations. And one thing is, the more you choose to tune into your light, the more you're noticed in the darker realm, because you're like it's like in Harry Potter, in the first one with the lampposts, or just a lamppost in general, like a dark street, if there's a lamppost, they see you. And so you're like their target. And it's not to scare you, but I've been in weeks of the mind just doubting, and I'm realizing like this isn't even my thought, because thought forms are energy forms, they're beings as well. So I think the more you awaken to your light, the more you have to know your power, and you have to constantly remind yourself that, because they see you more, because it's not what they want, you know what I mean? And that's been what the world's been under attack for so long. As long as people are like asleep and not conscious, they're just easier to just be that way, and they can siphon the energy, because they say anyway, right, this is just a saying, when God disconnected into 2 different parts, because the source was like one and just chilling and enjoying itself, but it wanted to experience itself in individuality, and that's how the universe was created, like how Earth, and they say that when source split apart, the source went I am, and the reflection said yes you are, which is like Jeshua, like Jesus Christ, like Jeshua, yes you are. And so with these fragments, when some decided to turn against the light, they can't stay alive unless they have fear energy, because that's now what they've left the light. Do you know what I mean? So how they essentially live is through fear. And so as long as you're afraid and you're overthinking and analyzing, doubting, they're receiving that energy so they can stay quote unquote alive and give them power. And that's when I realized the power of love, because you hear people say love and light, and you're like, for a while I was like, that's not true, it's so much darkness. But the truth is, when I'm afraid in my room, or like I can feel an energy, I tune into my heart, and like it withers away, like it's terrified, because when you have the force of light, there's so you cannot be controlled, you cannot be manipulated, you cannot be led astray. It's such a powerful force. It's not like love, it's literally the creator of all things. It's really like powerful. Ancient. It's so powerful. And
that, like what you just said there again, with this book, Outwitting the Devil, it really goes in on that as well, about
Wow,
how
I have to read it.
yes, yeah, do, because it really goes in on how, as we're saying, these dark entities feed off the fear, and how, as you say, when you tune into love and you tune into your own power, all of it disappears.
Yeah.
And wow, I feel like we could literally talk for hours and hours and hours on this stuff. I really actually want to get you on for a part 2.
Absolutely.
Because I like, these are the types of conversations, and I literally have said this with, I've already interviewed 3 guests this year, and we're only like 3 weeks into the year.
Wow.
And one of my intentions for this year on the podcast was to get
so
high level conversation on this podcast. The kind of conversation that I have with my spiritual besties, like when we're just sitting alone, and I always think I should have my podcast on right now. And
I feel that way so deeply when I'm with my friends. I'm like, fuck, that was really good.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, right, fuck this. This year is going to be about those convos coming on here. And I really feel that we've gone deep in that today. And I hope that everybody has really like gotten these nuggets of wisdom from you today. I'm absolutely sure they have. I would love for you to tell my audience like where they can find you, first of all, obviously YouTube, but where they can find you, and also anything that you're any offers that you've got out at the moment, anything you're doing at the moment, share with us now.
Oh, thank you. Also, I enjoyed this conversation so much. I live for these esoteric conversations because it's like, it's what we're all thinking, the spiritual people anyway, you know what I mean? So thank you. It's been a delight. And you can find me on YouTube at Ella Ringrose. My Instagram's, everything's at Ella Ringrose. And then my main thing that I'm doing at the moment is the Rose membership. It's essentially something that I wanted to create that is a proven system that people can actually follow to manifest, to heal, to enhance their psychic abilities, all areas, because I believe that this spiritual awakening is rocky, and I think we do need something that can ground us and give us something that makes us feel safe, that we have a proven system. So it's basically a membership where I host monthly Zoom ceremonies, I give premium content meditations.
Amazing.
And it's a global community, so it's very beautiful.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Oh, Ella, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your time with us and all of your expertise on this stuff. I'm sure that we're going to get a lot of messages in from this. And for those of you that are listening in, please do tag us both on your Instagram, share this on your Instagram stories. Like, we love to see who's been listening in. And I hope that you're going to have a gorgeous rest of your day, Ella. And I'll definitely be in touch.
Oh my God, I love this. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend who you think would love it too. And if you want to let me know how you found it, just screenshot this episode, add it to your Instagram story, and tag me at I am Jessica Paul so that I can throw all the love right back at you. And of course, subscribe, hit those 5 stars, and leave a review to show your support and to keep the good stuff coming. Sending you so much love and gratitude from your girl Jess.